Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is season 6 of the MindShare Podcast. This show is sponsored by Kits Keep in Touch Systems, a 2-time international award-winning marketing suite. REM Real Estate Magazine, Canada's premier monthly magazine for real estate professionals. And OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, Canada's largest provincial real estate association. Speaking of OREA, did you get your tickets for Reality 24 yet? This 2-day event is going to be bringing the top realtors from the country to the nation's capital, where all decisions that affect homeownership in Canada are going to be made. Plus, the one and only basketball Hall of Famer Magic Johnson, as well as the founder of FUBU, Damon John, will also be in the house. To learn more about all of the incredible speakers we have at Reality 24, the expansive trade show, the networking and the after-hours events, and much more, visit www.realityconference.ca. Be sure to get your tickets today so you can join us at Reality 24, where every session, panel, and keynote is designed to give you a new perspective on the future of real estate. Of course, you can learn more about all of our sponsors by visiting my site, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of our MindShare 101 goal-setting worksheet, as well as learn more about our one-to-one coaching and keynote speaking. Today's episode is number 268. His passion lies in igniting the brilliance of people to help motivate them to their next level of performance. With over 20 years of hands-on experience, he is recognized as one of the leading applied behavioral scientists in the USA. He brings his expertise in understanding human motivation to help you understand how you can influence new habit formation and drive positive behavioral change in yourself for both work and life. Joining me on this episode of the MindShare Podcast is behavioral scientist Kurt Nelson. Kurt, welcome to the MindShare Podcast.
Glad to be here, Dave. Really looking forward to this.
Absolutely, man. It's this is as we were talking about as we were off air just prior to getting live. I was mentioning to you that we're at this juncture right now, right? We are 31 days into the new year. Everybody's come off, I'd say 31 days ago, everybody stepped into the year going, yeah, new year, new me. I'm going to do all these changes. And well, I'm sure a lot of people, actually, we know that 40% of people as of today have given up on those. So I want to get into all that, but I guess before we sort of go down that road, what is behavioral science and how can it help people make positive changes in their own lives?
And behavioral science is really an interesting conglomeration of a bunch of different pieces. It's really about looking at psychology, looking at economics, looking at sociology. It's a mixture of all of those that really just looks at why do people do what they do. And so it is any of the fields of study that focus in on that. And we bring a focus in on the application side of that aspect of saying, okay, understanding why people do what they do. Now, what are those factors that we can actually influence and how can we actually use that information in order to change our habits, achieve our goals, whatever that would be. So in a nutshell, that would be how I describe it.
Well, see, I want to crack that nutshell open now. I want to learn more because what I want to do is I want to make sure that we, and I have no doubt that we will. I want to make sure that everybody tuned in is actually going to walk away from today being able to dive deeper. Now, again, I shared this with you a little bit off air. This is something that we touch on a lot in our role through our podcast, through our teachings, our keynote talks, the trainings, the one-to-one coaching we do. We talk very often around behavior. Now, I'm not a behavioral scientist. I haven't, I started to study psychology. I just never finished it. Something that interests me for sure. But I would say that the reality is, the human habits, the reason why we do, why we don't do, to me, there's a big interest in that. And I think a lot of it was very self-motivated for myself to figure out, well, why am I thinking that way? Or why am I acting that way? Or why am I feeling that way? How can I make a change in that? Yeah. And look, that's taken years. And it's still a continued work in progress because the reality is there are a lot of distractions out there, a lot of things that pull at us.
Yeah.
How do you spend your days? Like what do you normally or what are you usually doing, which is so focused on this niche around behavioral science? Just and
Yeah.
I'm trying to set the stage for our listeners right now to sort of get a sense of you.
Yeah. So before we go there, I just want to say we talk with a lot of people on the podcast and just in my world that are exactly like you, and we call them accidental behavioral scientists, right? That you guys are learning and trying to understand human behavior and why we do what we do, and maybe you can actually do all of those things that are driving those behaviors, and you understand them. You just might not know the science behind it, and so that's where we come in. And so my day to day, I do most of my work within organizations. So have a company that works with organizations around the world where we go in and focus in on employee motivation and engagement. And most of that is focused in on bringing in leadership and training them in some behavioral science principles, how they know they can influence behavior, working with total rewards and compensation, developing out those pieces, and then really just understanding how to communicate more effectively out inside of those organizations. And so that's a lot of the work that we do every single day.
Interesting. So you're working with larger groups and be able to teach them. And again, when you even talk about the communication, just the importance of what two people actually talking with each other or be able to express themselves.
Yeah, we do workshops on communication, which is everything from, one-on-one communication. How do you do that? There's a sender receiver model. There's all sorts of different factors that kind of come to play on that. How you frame it, different messages, how what's anchored in and what's not, and all of those are coming in from that perspective of, how do we make that happen? And yeah, so we do everything from one-on-one to large groups to a variety of other things. So.
We had last week on the show, I had a gentleman by the name of Gavin Stone. He's a former spy with the British intelligence agency. And I mean, one of the questions was like, is it really like what James Bond is like? He started laughing. But I also, I wanted to know from him, around outside of like, how do you become a former spy? What are some of those things? And he did talk about at one point, um, and I'm not going to frame this properly here right now, but it was something around trying to bring out to evoke positive emotion and then to have that repeat. And he discussed something like, if you find that somebody gets in a good place, happy, positive, something good happened. And again, the example he used, and it doesn't have to just be this, but he's like, he touched their right elbow. And then further, into more conversations with them again, when something was good, he just, touched their right elbow and do it in a way that they didn't really realize what was going on. But now what would happen is through this process of repetition, he was now able to evoke more positivity by just first touching the right elbow. Whereas if something negative happened, it would be like an opposite thing of like touching the left elbow. And to me, and this sounds horrible, so please, like you and anybody else listening, don't take this out of context. When we talk about like manipulation, when we talk about trying to achieve the end result that we want, trying to get to people to think the way we want them to think, I do believe that the connections we have with people, the words we use with people, the emotions that take place between, say, two people or even a group, those are extremely powerful in taking whatever the conversation situation is to the next place. And that's why I say it doesn't. I don't mean manipulate in a bad way, but I mean it's maybe for both of you to get the outcome you want.
There's a lot to that. So what we're talking about, emotions are contagious, but you're also, what he's talking about is a concept that's called priming. So this idea, it's
I
kind
think
of
that's what he said.
Pavlovian. It's this idea of we connect certain things with different pieces, and if you prime certain emotions, if you prime certain elements, then the subsequent behavior behind that is more likely to fall into a specific type, right? So we know, again, from a framing perspective, I'll just talk about communication a little bit.
Mhm.
You can frame something as like this. The classic example of this is research on with medical doctors. So you think doctors, they're going to be looking at the research, they're going to be looking at all of this stuff. Well, they basically gave one group of doctors and said, hey, this treatment works 95% of the time. And then they gave another group of doctors, then they said, this treatment has a 5% failure rate, right?
Mhm.
You look at that, it's exactly the same.
Right, I got you.
95% success,
Right.
5% failure. But the likelihood of the doctor actually saying, yes, we're going to go with this treatment, was significantly more when they framed it as 95%
Right.
success. And you can take that across anything. So you're framing, you're basically you're putting people in a mindset about how to the emotional piece of that, right? 95% success, that's great. We like that. Oh, 5% failure, we don't like that. That's horrible. I don't want to be the person that focuses on that 5%. So that's a really just a fundamental way that if we understand how things are framed, again, going back to the part of touching your elbow or
Mhm.
however that would be, again, we've known there's in call centers, you put pictures of happy people up in front of people in the call center, they do better on their customer service calls than if they don't have those just a happy
Wow.
picture. So all of those kind of play into how that works.
Two things that hit me as you were saying that. One was he actually used Pavlov's dog on that. So
Yeah.
so so I think priming I think is the worst. So I guess I went down the right road there. Um, I was having a conversation with a client of mine this morning, and it was really I don't remember how sort of like it led into that, but it was this idea of if every time you say to me, Dave, how's it going? And I'm like, ah,
Mhm.
man, it's just a disaster, buddy. But like, we're doing good and we're making it through.
Yeah.
And the next time you speak to me and I'm like, yeah, it's all good. Like we'll get there. The next time you speak to me, it's kind of like at some point you're gonna go, man, this guy's negative.
Yeah.
Right. Like I've primed you to think that I'm a guy that looks at the glass half empty. I don't look at the opportunities. And it was the same thing I said because I had this conversation with one of the players on my baseball team the other day when he walked into practice with no hat on. And he walked in, he didn't have his baseball cap, and it's like you don't come to baseball without your cap, right? But he didn't have his cap, and he looked at me, came up, and he's like, "Coach, I don't have my hat." And I looked at him, I can see that. I said, "What happened?" And he started to give me an excuse. I said, "Don't answer that." And he looked at me like he's a 12-year-old, right? He looks at me, he's like, "Huh?" I'm like, "Own it.
Yeah.
Don't give me excuses. Just own it."
Yeah.
And where I tie the two together is instead of, trying to teach this 12-year-old even, forget about the excuse. Just own it. And what's going to happen is the next time maybe you make an excuse, or pardon me, you make a mistake, but you own it. We're now into this thing of, hey, last time you did it, you corrected immediately. We never saw it again. Something else happened. You did. And you're priming me, let's say, to say, hey, this kid takes ownership. This is a positive character trait as opposed to, well, coach, I didn't do this. And again, priming the wrong way.
Exactly.
So I bring this up now and I say to everybody tuned in, when a client's asking you about something, be positive. As you just said about the call center, right? Be positive. Give them positivity.
Yeah. And again, you can set up that in advance, right? You know that if you start, again, people's perception of you, just as you mentioned, if I am negative to begin with, right? The next time my brain actually is looking for, oh, my David was negative, right? I'm gonna be primed to be looking for those negative cues. And my brain might even pass over some of the you might start off positive, but I'm expecting you to be negative. And so I can actually miss some of those positive things. Vice versa. If I start off positive and then the next time we meet, I might be, I just got out of a bad conversation and I might be a little grumpy. Well, you know what? I might overlook that, right? It's your brain doesn't necessarily register that because it's not what it's looking for. There's a great work. It's called The Invisible Gorilla, and you can actually Google it. And if you
Okay.
haven't seen this, it's a fantastic video. And I'm going to give it away, so I apologize in advance. But it's this video, and they ask you. There's two groups of people, three people each. Some in black t-shirts, three people in black t-shirts, three people in white t-shirts. They each have a basketball. They're passing that ball between the black shirts are passing to the people in black shirts. The people in white shirts are passing it to people in white shirts. And the ask is count how many times. Focus the attention. Count how many times that the white team passes it to each other. And as they do that, right, it's about a minute and a half video. And in the middle of that video, a guy in a gorilla outfit walks right in between everybody, thumps his chest, and then walks off. And yet 60% of the people don't see the gorilla, right?
Hmm.
And that's because your focus is in on the white, on the passing, and it's this called attentional disillusion and various different other pieces that go into that. But this idea is that what we focus on is what we see. And so again, you're priming people to focus in on the positive, make sure that that's that positive. Again, selling houses, right? If you're a seller, that first impression really important, right? Because then everything from walking in that door, if it looks good on the outside, you walking through that front door, I'm going to be looking for positive things. If there's, doesn't look so good from the outside, what am I looking for? I'm going to be looking for, some of those negative things.
So I went down the right road with this. What did you say I was? A practicing behavioral scientist?
Accidental behavioral scientist. There you go.
Okay, so now you had told me before we went on the show, and I think this is ironic because I did not know this until we literally were about to go live. But you said your wife is actually a real estate agent.
Yeah, she is. She in Minneapolis, Minnesota, right here. So
Okay,
yeah.
cool. So for everybody tuned in, understand that although Kurt is not selling real estate, Kurt is living in the world of real estate. So he understands what we're up to over here. Okay, so let's do this now. We had started. I sort of mentioned, brand new year. As of about today, over 40% of people have now fallen off of their goals, and just maybe don't believe it, maybe didn't do the right things. And I want to kind of get into that with you. But I guess that the question to start with on that front would be, and I kind of think I know the answer here, but do you believe in setting goals?
I do. I think goals, and actually lots of really great research, goals work. Goals work really, really well. They work. Again, Gary Latham and John Locke, two great researchers, started this work in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they have developed what's called goal theory, right? And this idea that if you give somebody a goal versus somebody just go out there and do your best, right? But no, you sell 10 houses, or you just go out and do your best. 10 houses will beat that if that's a stretch goal, right? If but the 10 houses will beat the do your best every single time. And now there's factors around that about what makes goals successful. And I think that's probably where we want to start talking about.
Yeah. And it's funny, as you brought that up, it made me think the other day we were at hockey and you got to shoot to score. And I said to the guys, I coach hockey as well. And I said to the boys, I said, listen, you got a goal now. And the next, for the next 3 minutes of the game, I want to get at least 5 shots. And I sent the next line out there and they went out and they got 4 shots on that shift alone. So to what you just said, it was like, and they came back right away. And they're like, Coach, we got 4 shots, right? Like to what you just said, it was like they had a number and now they're like, I just got to hit that number.
Yeah, there's
I live that.
Yeah, there's a really interesting facet on this. And so there's this element of goal gradient theory, this idea too, that one of the reasons that goals work is that we have a target to aim for. And so now we know what we need to do. It helps align us where we are. But in addition to that, there's a natural motivational pull from us. So like getting to that 4, now the next group is going, we just got to get 1, right? I get that 1, we've reached that goal. Goals start off high. There's what's called the problem of the middle, which is like, so if they would have come back with 2 or 3, that's okay. Now we're in the middle and it's not as motivating. But because you got past that, then you gets really motivation at the end. And I use this example when my daughter was young. She's now 14. But we'd go to the park, right? And the park is about 10 blocks away, and she was little. And so start off, and she's super excited to hold my hand and kind of pulling me along. About 2 blocks in, what happens? She gets tired. Papa, carry me, right? And so I got to pick her up and I carry her until we can see the park. And as soon as we see the park, she's no longer tired anymore, right?
She's
just
running
she's
full
down
steam,
and she
right?
not even pulling me. She's way ahead of me, right? And that's how we are. We are that way as individuals. And so, setting that goal and making sure that and you've probably, there's a goal that you can easily make. There's a stretch goal, right? And you want to have a stretch goal. You want to have that goal be a little bit beyond what you can do. It makes you kind of focus in on it a little bit more. So
Let me ask you this then. When I'm on the treadmill and I'm doing my workout and I'm running and I know that I want to run, let's say my warm up is like 10 minutes of running. Okay.
Yep.
So I'll walk for the first couple of minutes, I get the heart rate up, then I'll start running. And I try to hit that goal of essentially, I'm going to run the rest of the time. First couple minutes we're running. Then we look at the clock and we're like, oh man, I still, like you said, I mean, I'm obviously in that middle ground right there going like,
Yeah.
I can't do this. Then you get past that though, if you can keep it up, and now you get into the end, like you said, and all of a sudden, it feels easier to do that last minute, 2 minutes, whatever. It starts to get easier. Why is that?
Our brain plays tricks on us, right? It,
Okay.
it, it is really amazing the way that our brain does this, and this is a lot of the work that we bring in is that all of the tricks that our brain does. That is one of them. It is this idea that from a motivational perspective, it's like we start off, we have this aspirational piece. It's like, oh, I'm gonna run, I'm gonna do all this great stuff, and then we get in, and it's tough. It is tough, right? And particularly in that middle, it's like it feels daunting. It's like, oh my God, I got 8 minutes left. That's a long time. My legs
Mhm.
are already hurting, right? But then
Yeah.
you get to that part where you're 7 minutes in, and it's like there's only 3 minutes. I can push through this.
Yeah.
And our brain and actually some really interesting pieces on that. Expectation theory talks about, the way that our mind interprets expectations and things about that actually changes our bodily response. And so you're talking about how you actually have more energy. It's probably because your body is actually responding in a way that you are getting more adrenaline pumped into your body because of the way that your brain is operating at that time in various different pieces. So that it really is fascinating when we look at that. Now there's a little trick here. So about that middle download,
Mhm.
right? So the way that you look at the time left in your run or the number of steps that you have left to do in achieving your goal, right? In that first half, or maybe even a little bit beyond that first half, you look at how far you've come, right? You don't look at how much more you have to go. You
So
actually look backwards.
that's the gain where we're looking at that gain. Look what I've already done so far.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
go, I've already done 3 minutes and I've gone how far? Okay, that's cool. I'm doing good. I'm doing good. You're not looking at the 7 minutes left, but then once you get past that 5-minute mark and you're on the downward side of that middle part, then you start looking, hey, I only got 4 minutes left. All right, here we go. And so
Right.
again, it's not magic. It's not going to change. If it's really tough, it's still going to be really tough, but it shifts it a little bit in order for you to then tap into some of those motivational reserves that we have.
This like you've got me locked in on this one, man. I love this conversation. So let's talk techniques and advice. What could people do? Because I don't want to show what I do just yet. And I know a lot of my listeners know, and folks that work with me and coach with me, they've got the processes that we've gone through. You've actually shared a lot of that so far. So it does reinforce, all jokes aside, that we are on the very, very much the right track here. But before I share, I figured I'd ask you, what kind of techniques, advice do you teach people when it comes to goal setting?
Yeah. So we talk about the technical term, very technical, outcome goals and effort goals, right? So you have, what is the outcome that I want to achieve? That's winning the pennant. It is, being number one. It is whatever that outcome goal is. It can even be selling, X million dollars or X number of houses, et cetera, whatever that would be. That's an outcome goal.
Mhm.
And that's what a lot of people do, and this is where you get into, like, New Year's resolutions. They are almost always outcome goals, right? We
Right.
look at that, and then effort goals are, the things of what do I need to do? Like, in other words, I wanna be in better shape, and so instead of having a shape thing, I'm gonna go it's 5 times a week, I'm gonna go to the gym for 30 minutes. It's a very, very much. And the
Coaching
problem
clients, are you listening to this? We are on the right track. Sorry, keep going.
but the problem is that we kind of separate those two. And in reality, we need both, right? We need what we call in the way that we talk about it is that keystone goal, that outcome goal that is going to have an emotional pull. That is like, this is something I really want. That's the motivational aspect of goal setting. It's kind of that I really want to have that. But you need the effort goals. You need to have those milestones. You need to say, what do I need to do every day for how long, and what parts of those in order to do that. The If we just do effort goals, they're great in moving us forward, but man, they are not motivational and they're actually
Right.
drudgery, right? There's
Right.
that element of I got to get up and go run
Hard work
again.
and do it.
Oh
Yeah.
God, this is horrible. But if you then tap in, but that means I'm going to be the fastest runner on the team, and therefore that's what I want. That taps into some of our emotions. vice versa, that emotion only gets us so far, but then it's like we wander, right? And it's like I don't have a set things that I need to do on a regular basis. And so, sometimes actually having those aspirational, those outcome goals, just having them gives us this like warm fuzzy, and we don't do anything about it. Then it's like, oh, I've set my goal. That's great. And then you go through the rest of your day not doing anything to achieve that goal. And so that's the problem there. So combining those two is really there. And then I think as you understand, you have to set that up in such a way to make those effort goals that you have as easy as possible. So that is either blocking time out of your calendar. It is, making sure that your gym is maybe you move your gyms to being on the way back from the office so that it's easy. You don't have to drive out of the way. And every day it's just a simple stop off at the office, right? I talk about this one gentleman who wanted to learn how to play guitar,
Mhm.
and he set up a really great plan. I mean, his goal was great. I'm going to practice every night after I get home, and I'm going to practice for an hour before I do anything else. And that's great. If you do that 5 days a week for a year, you're going to be pretty good at the guitar. What he found though is he'd come home, he'd be going work, right? Maybe he'd be at work longer. It was a stressful day, and he comes back, sits down on his couch. What's in front of him? TV remote, flips on the TV, just starts watching TV, and all of a sudden, 2, 3 hours gets away, and he has to cook dinner, do his laundry, whatever, and no time for the guitar, right? And that happened over and over and over again. So what he did is he made it easy. And so he took his TV, put it in the back room, still has a TV. Want to go watch the football game, baseball game, whatever, I can go do that. But now when I come home, when I sit down on the couch, he actually moved his guitar to stand next to the couch. And so there's no TV. He still comes in, sits down on the couch,
Right.
and
There's a
but now
guitar.
there's no TV, but there's a guitar right there. I'm gonna grab that guitar, and that actually worked, right? So you set that up, and what we talk about from that is make the right things easy and make the
Mhm.
difficult or the wrong things hard. So again, it's all about friction and the amount of effort that you have to put in. And it seems really simple in some ways, but you set your environment up for success,
You
and that
know
drives success.
Yeah, no, and I would double down, with you on that a million percent, and again, like, very much from, personal experience, living it. Um, we talk about goals and we look at, that big picture, and I say to people, you think big, like, go big. Don't
Yeah.
don't make it just, like, easy to achieve because it's not gonna push you. It's not gonna take you to the place you wanna be. However, if I sat there and let's go climb Mount Everest together, you and me, Kurt, and let's do this. And we're sitting at the base and we're looking up at this thing and we're like, oh my God, that's going to be next. Like, it's going to be hard. It's going to take forever. It's going to be impossible. Like, how long is this going to take me? We might demotivate ourselves right there.
Yeah.
At the same time, too, we cannot expect that we're going to be climbing that in a day. It's just not realistic. So now it's about breaking that down and really making it these small incremental pieces, these little, little measurements that we can look at and say, well, if I could just accomplish that in, let's
Yeah.
say, this day, and then I could do that again, like, on the next day, even though it's not gonna be easy to just even do that, I'm not looking at this. I'm just
Right.
looking at that, and that makes it a lot easier to accomplish. So what we look at, and I guess I might word it differently, but it's, what is the end result that you're looking for? If it's to lose weight, now it's, well, how are you going to lose weight? So you said, I think,
Yes.
the ultimate goal, and then what did you say? The effort goal, right?
Outcome goal and effort goals. Yeah.
Pardon me,
Yeah.
outcome and effort. So to me, the outcome is lose weight. To me,
Yep.
the outcome is make money.
Yeah.
The effort is, well, how?
Yeah.
So we call it action steps.
Yeah.
And now it's, well, I'm going to go to the gym. Well, how many times are you going to go to the gym?
Yeah.
Quantify it for me.
Yeah.
Then it's, I'm gonna eat better. Well, what does that mean? You
Mm.
can't just say eat better. Tell me what, like how?
Yeah.
And money. Well, how many calls are you going to make? How many meetings are you going to do? Right. And understanding if we could chip away at that, and I've broken it right down to say 30 to 60-minute increments in your day.
Yeah.
That if you can now say, I'm going to make call it 5 phone calls today. I'm going to take, 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. to make those calls. And you get through those 5 phone calls, whether you got the deal or you didn't get the deal, you've now done the effort. You've achieved the effort goal that should essentially, as long as you're consistent enough, take you to your outcome goal.
It's the shot on goals that you just said,
Right?
right? You're not going to score on every shot on goal, but eventually, if you get enough shots on goal, you will get in, and that's exactly what it is. There's also this aspect from effort goals, that there's two things that we didn't talk about before. But I talked about the goal gradient, that motivation that you get at the beginning,
Yep.
and then at the end. So when you break those down into those action steps, they're mini goals. And
Right.
so you get this little uplift, like when you're getting close to, I'm gonna do this step for today, I'm gonna do whatever that is, right? So it's really cool when you think about it from that perspective, this idea that, hey, you get this big goal, right? You want to do that. Now the one thing, instead of just saying I want to make money, make sure it's a very tangible, like a specific amount of money. It's
Hmm.
I want to lose X number of pounds.
Quantify it.
Quantify
Don't
it.
just tell me weight. Tell me how much weight. Don't
Tell
just
me
tell me
how
money.
much
Tell
and
me
make sure
right.
that's there. Yeah, so
Totally, totally, totally. So okay. I think where you were going just before I sort of brought that last part up, it sounded to me, or at least that's where I thought we were, habits.
yeah.
Right, as we look at the reward, I mean, again, when I said about our tracking process, it's very much the shots, okay, and we'll sort of use that as an analogy. As I'm drinking my tea, you might be able to tell I am a diehard Maple Leafs fan. To that, I would say that, I look at it, and every time I go do a workout, I change the number from, like, today went from, like, 20 to 21.
Mhm,
That's a huge reward.
mhm,
Yesterday was, 19, and it went to 20. Right, and yeah, at maybe the 10, I'm looking going, "Man, I still got 11 more to do or 12 more to do," so I'm in the middle, like where you just said, but I'm so, routined now or habituated to this process, the reward that I get at the end of it, that I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna hit that 21, man. I wanna get past 21 at this point."
yeah.
Right, so I'm really driven, but why would you say why are habits so hard to form for most people, and what do you suggest people do to form those new habits?
Yeah. Habits are a very interesting psychological component, because when the definition of a habit is really where a routine becomes uh, almost subconscious. So we're not actively consciously having to think about it. So
Mhm.
at some point it becomes just this habit that we do, that, if you think about when you started to drive a car, right? You had to
Yep.
think about all of those different pieces, like oh, I got a break, you actually had to, your prefrontal cortex, the kind of thinking part of your brain, actually had to do that. But after a while, it became habit. You can have whole big conversations and be doing all sorts of other things, which I don't recommend when you're driving. But you can be doing that and still drive and make, you might miss your turn off, but you're going to be braking and accelerating and swerving to miss things in different aspects, because you have become habituated to that driving aspect. Now habits are hard because they take, and there's been lots of misinformation out, like how many times you have to repeat a process. And for the most recent research that is on that, is it's dependent. It's dependent upon how much effort goes into the action that you're doing, the behavior that you're trying to create into a habit. The more effort, the more that it's going to take, and the longer that it's going to take. And
Mhm.
some things actually will never become habits. They can become routines. In other words, you can do it, but it's always going to have to take some conscious effort to do what that is. And I actually encourage people to set up their routines more than try to establish habits. And the routine basically is just saying, I'm going to do it every day at the same time or the same way, or whatever it is that I need to repeat in a consistent fashion. I'm just going to use tools and other things to make sure that my prefrontal cortex says, "Oh yes, I need to go brush my teeth every single day. I'm going to brush my teeth, and there I'm going to have that tool." So I'm going to set up these routines to do that, and whether that be reminders, phone reminders, various different visual cues. Again, like that gentleman who we talked about, who put the guitar
Mhm.
next to the thing. You set your environment up for success. And so when we talk about, having a routine or a habit, I don't really care, as long as it becomes consistent, as long as you're doing
Right.
it to the point that you need to do it when you want to do it.
I, I teach on building habit.
Hmm.
Um, I've learned that a habit is made up of 3 pieces: a
Hmm.
trigger, an action, and a
Yep.
reward.
Yep.
And so as you talk to routine, I'm internalizing the way I operate. And again, for everybody that we talk about mapping a lot, my listeners, right? I've got sort of bookends to the day.
Yep.
And the start of the day really looks at, like, it's called read review, which means before I touch this thing over here for the first couple, I don't touch it for the first couple hours of the day. I'm going to tap into my goals. I want to look at them. I want to internalize them. I want to continue to embed them in my head every 24 hours. I just
Yep.
want to see them, right? I want to tally up what I accomplished yesterday. And I start my day that way. I'm like, hey, 20 to 21. Look at
Hmm.
that. Then I'll go to food, right? And it's like another one of these. And seriously though, off the top of my day, I've rewarded myself a number of times.
Yeah.
I then tap into my gratitude, and I'll start to do intention setting and just journaling and just sort of, what do we got that's good, right? Because we know that this life, this day is going to throw something at us that might try to take us off our game. Let's center ourselves. And I'm not trying to get woo woo with people. I really live and breathe by this stuff. It's worked. It's helped me, and it's helped a lot of people I work with.
Yeah.
And I'm getting the sense that as you nod, that this is kind of in line, right?
It's absolutely in line, and I can talk like gratitude is one of those pieces that I think people go, it's woo woo, right? And kind of like I'm going to do a gratitude practice.
Right?
The research on this, and this is where
Yeah.
this is the part that I love,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So if you start a gratitude practice, do like just finding something to be grateful for every day, either writing it down or even just thinking about it or sharing it with somebody
This
else.
cup of water, like,
Yeah. Uh,
right?
Hey, I used to write a gratitude blog. Like I would write, I'm thankful about something. And one day I was thankful that my window in Minnesota, right, middle of winter, got stuck being down, right? But I was
Okay.
grateful because it was in a parking lot and it wasn't outside while I was driving 70 miles per hour and had an hour to go. And I literally had, a mile to go back home. And so it was fine. It was, I was
Yeah.
grateful that it could have been
Yeah.
worse. But what that does is it actually rewires your brain.
Right.
So we talked about priming before, right? So
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
brain is all of a sudden going, oh, every day David's doing this gratitude thing. He's like, finding something to look for. Now all of a sudden your brain, instead of just like passing over, hey, I got a glass of water here, or this is a really good lunch. This is, something that, or wow, look at that sky. That sky is fantastic. It's really beautiful, whatever it is. And oftentimes we just go through life without even paying attention, being mindful of what's going
Right?
on. But we rewired our brain going, oh, nope, he's going to be
Kurt,
asking me about that later.
I've been writing down, and this is something I've been doing for a long time, but again, we talk about priming.
Mhm.
I am grateful for the opportunities coming my way today.
Yeah.
And now the smallest thing could come to you, or a big thing could come to you, but you are open to receiving that, and you are conscious going, opportunity.
This is an opportunity. I might have passed over that. I might
Right.
not have even recognized it as an
Right.
opportunity before, but now because you've done that, it's like, "Oh, no, that's an opportunity. I'm taking that. I'm
Okay,
running
you
with that."
see?
Yeah.
So start of the day looks like that, and then end of the day is this, and we talk about routine, is this little item in the calendar. This is the bookend that says to do.
Yeah.
And to do means, hey, go schedule tomorrow. Well, what am I scheduling tomorrow based off of? Well, the goals you've got. You've got those action items, those effort goals, right?
Yep.
Where are those slotting into your day? And I go slot those in amongst the meetings and the appointments and all the other stuff that we do. You slot those in. And now, again, on a daily basis, we're working through the day. It's very much based on goals. And every 30 to 60 minutes,
Yeah.
nice job, Dave. Nice job. And now we're in this awesome routine. So I bring this up, one, just based on the conversation we're having. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. Um, you spend your days, as you mentioned, in the corporate world. You're working with a lot
Yep.
of groups and people and organizations on things like rewards programs, motivation, employee incentives. And as we're talking with entrepreneurs and salespeople today, I guess maybe we just said this, Kurt, but like, why is it so important to reward ourselves, to find those little rewards each day? And I guess, how can people motivate themselves? Maybe is the question, but maybe the question is just, why is it so important to reward ourselves? And maybe we just said it.
Yeah, well, I think you did just say it. I think there's an element of what we talk about when we get rewarded. Again, I won't get into the neurobiology of
Yeah.
this, but
I
we've
love
all
that part.
probably heard
Yeah,
about
there's wires
dopamine.
going on.
Yeah,
I'm
we
with you.
all have heard
I'm with
about
you.
dopamine.
Yep.
There's all sorts of those neurochemicals, and rewards release that. It gives us a pleasure, but dopamine is also more of the desire. So we get a reward, and dopamine gets released to say, I want more of that, right?
Mhm.
I want more. So it actually is helping in those in between times when you're not getting that reward, right? That it's the striving. I want to strive. The dopamine is what gets you to say, yeah, I'm going to go, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put that effort in. And so those rewards are really important. Now, you can talk about rewards the way that we talk about it is there's extrinsic, those external, the money, the commission, the accolades, the plaque on the wall, whatever that would be. Those are extrinsic. Those are external to us. And then there's intrinsic, which are the we do something because we get some satisfaction from doing it. There's some pleasure that we experience in doing this. Now, there's been this really big debate in the world about extrinsic versus intrinsic and which is better and which is more, and you can argue both sides of the fence on that all day long. In my world, I say you need both, right? You
Okay.
want to tap into both, and you can. We've done some work where extrinsic rewards kind of jumpstart intrinsic motivation, right? So you can do that, and so
Makes
finding
sense.
out for yourself, is if you're an entrepreneur, right? What are those things that get you going, right? What are the things that, like, when you sit down and whether it be, hey, it's that kind of finding new clients, or whether it be, setting up the perfect call appointment, whatever that would be, what are those pieces of your job that really get you going? Understand that that's that intrinsic motivation, and then just kind of decipher, kind of sit down with yourself, like you said, that
Yep.
that morning, like kind of going, oh, how do I get those? What do I need to do in order to tap into that pat on the back that you even said, right? You can do some of that by the achievement part that you get, that's extrinsic, but also just living in that moment of those times. And how do you tap into that? That's the really key piece.
Yeah, I think it's I again, and I would say, yeah, I agree with you. It's obviously going to be different for everybody.
Hmm.
I can totally see, and I never thought about it this way of the extrinsic and intrinsic, but I get it. I get it. And I think that we all probably operate to some degree of that. It's just a matter of
Yeah.
actually recognizing what that is. Um, So when we talk about routine then, is there any tips that you give? And I mean, I just shared a few of what I do in terms of morning routine, bookending, whatnot. Anything that you would suggest in terms of establishing a strong routine, some action steps you'd suggest to people?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things. So obviously, as you talked about, like the habit piece is exactly the same for routines. Is there's a cue or a trigger, right? Then the action subsequently happens, and then there's some reward after that.
Right.
So the more that you can do that, I think that's really important. Again, you talked about setting up your calendar, setting up the time, various different pieces. If you can actually schedule in actions and various different things, that's great. Now, I will go a little different. I'll take a zig
Mhm.
here, or a zag, whichever one it goes, right? But this idea, oftentimes, what we what we're doing is when we're trying to change behavior, sometimes it's like we're trying to do actions, and other times we're trying to not do things. Like, if you want to quit smoking, it's not,
Right.
it's like, I don't want to smoke, right? Or I don't want to get on my phone and just start scrolling through my phone and do different things. And to do that, that's a whole different type of it's a whole different type of kind of behavior change that you're doing. And what you want to do is you want to be mindful. So, again, what you talked about in kind of your mindfulness of looking at this, the more mindful we are, the easier it is to put some space between that cue or trigger and the action. And the more space that you can create between that, the more likely it is that you can, stop doing that. So, one of the ways that we teach people, one of the little hacks that we do, is if you know you're going to go into a situation where you might run into some issue like that, one is you can do a simple thing. It's called an if when or if then statement, or when
Right.
then statement, right? So when I encounter X, then I will do Y. And by having that statement done in what we call the cold state, this rational kind of state. When we're in that hot state, in that moment where when happens, and we don't have to, it takes some of the processing power out. We don't have to think about what I need to do because I've already thought about it. I should do X when this happens. And so it's not a magic bullet. It doesn't work all the time, but we know that on average, it increases the likelihood that you're going to do the right thing or the thing that you want to do. And so that's a really easy way of doing that. So again, we work with people like, hey, I always roll my eyes when Joe talks, right? It
Right.
just I just have this bad thing of if you realize that,
Luckily, it's
you
not when
can
David talks.
well, I wasn't going to say that, but um, but there are those types of even just simple things like that. You can
Yeah.
do what they're called implementation intentions. Um, and then, the other piece that I think is really important from this, and we talked about it before, but as much as you can set up your environment for success,
Yeah.
so again, that goes from everything from what do you have on your desk? Is your desk cluttered? Is your desk clean? We know clean desks actually allow you to be more focused in various different pieces, a priming component that we talk about,
Yeah. Yeah.
to, putting out, if you want to go jogging every day, hey, one of the things is, just setting out your running clothes the night before if you're going to get up and do it in the morning. It's one less step. I don't have to take those out of the drawer. It seems silly, but
No,
there's
no. I guess
there's
to
lots
people not doing it, I get it. Yeah.
yeah, there's lots of research that points. I mean, click-throughs on it's amazing to me. There's like a 30% drop off if the for every extra click that you have to do on like a shopping site. So Amazon was wonderful because they made it one click
Right.
buying. And but if you had to do two click buying, 30% less, right? And think about that. It's a click.
Yeah. No, but it's the
No effort
routine
at
though.
all.
It's what's making it easier for us to do. And the
Yeah.
same thing you brought up with the guitar again,
Yeah.
right? It's what's making it easier.
Yeah.
So I truly believe that time has a lot to do with this
Mhm.
and how we spend our time and what we do with that time. How rigid are you with your time each day? And why do so many people struggle with the concept of time? Like, I don't believe you can manage time.
Mm.
I just, if I stop my watch, yours keeps going kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I do believe that if I empower time to manage me and I
Yep.
leverage it the right way and I build it into that routine,
Yeah.
I've set up the environment, I've primed myself for where I'm going and what I'm doing. Like I've said many times before, I will get more done in a day than most people will in a week.
And I think time is really interesting, particularly as we think about how we schedule out our time. And so there's really interesting research. Dan Pink wrote a great book called When, and if I recommend it to people who haven't read it. And one of the things that he talks about is, we have different body rhythms throughout the day, a variety of different, circadian rhythm that we have from our
Yeah.
natural tendencies. And so we are more depending upon your circadian rhythm, you
Is
might
that the
be
one right
more
there?
yeah, there you go.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'm throwing that on the wish list. Yeah, no, it's
The
great. It's great
but
stuff.
the
Yep.
but the, so setting your day up to understand how your body is responding, right? So if you're more energized in the morning and you have more brain power, then set up those types of things. That
Yes,
the
sir.
other piece on that is what is an action called time blocking. Instead of just to-do lists, you actually set up, I am going to work on this for 30 minutes, right?
Yes.
And then I'm going to work on X for 45 minutes. And you talked about, I love this. You said, I work for 30 or 60 minutes and I give myself a pat on the back. That's fantastic. There is research that shows our attention is about, for most people, we can do like really intensive work for about 90 minutes. And after that, we start to kind of break down. So those
Mhm.
people who, I'm going to just power through this all morning and I'm going to do 4 hours of work. Well, really, you should be taking breaks at about every 90 minutes that just recharge, like get up, walk around, go outside, do something that gets your brain off of whatever it is that you were focused in on. And actually, when you come back, you will be more productive and you will get much more done than if you were to just power through for 4 hours on that. So that's another time hack that you can think of. So,
You brought up working out earlier, and to what you just said there, my rhythm, I cannot get up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
yep.
I will not get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym.
Yeah.
I like to get up. I like to get myself centered. I like to spend time with my kids before they go to school. Then I get into my meetings. And then kind of like late morning, early afternoon, I'll go to the gym.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't take away from the fact that I'm not stopping at, say, 5 PM, quote unquote, 40-hour a week, right? I've got other hours I'll put in because of that. But that allows me to kind of break it up, still get through to that big outcome goal as well as the effort goal. I
Yep.
can knock that off. It's within a time schedule. So there's this concept of something called, that I work with, realistic time.
Yep.
The gym's an hour. Well, is it really though? Or is it like more like 90 minutes? Because it's going to take time to get there. It's going to take time to sort of get in and get back and all that. So there's that, when we talk about the blocking of time, I look at those things, right?
Yeah.
I've explained many times before. My son plays a lot of sports.
Yeah.
A hockey game is an hour. Realistically, it's 4 hours, right? Because you got to get ready, you got to drive there, you got to be there an hour early, you got the game for an hour, you got to get back. So there's all of these things there, and it's again, I have found that when really structuring the time accordingly, now I can see, can I even get that done?
Yeah.
Is it realistic to get it done today? And then when somebody says, you're like, Dave, can you help me with this thing? And I can look at the schedule, but Kurt, I can't do it today.
Yeah.
Or I can decide whether that's a bigger priority at this moment, that you really need that, and I'm going to be there for you. What can I move?
Right.
But I cannot leave anything behind, because then again, the effort does not match what I want from an outcome.
Yeah. And that's the other piece is the element from a time management perspective, as you talked about, is we often put those emergency type things that are, maybe they're important, but maybe they're not so important. But we respond. Again, our natural inclination is, oh, I have to focus on this right now. They're asking me for this and I need to do it. You know what? Again, it's that space, right? You can allow yourself a little space to think.
Right.
Viktor Frankl, famous psychologist, lived through Auschwitz and wrote a great book of The Man's Search for Meaning. Had this great, and I'm going to misquote this, but it is, between I'm totally drawing a blank.
I've got the book
on
in the
this.
wish list as well already. It's on the list for this year.
But it's basically this idea that between stimulus and response is a space. In that space is our ability to choose, and in that choosing is how we make our life. And I misquoted that, but that's basically it. It's this between stimulus and response. And if there's a space there, there's a moment and something for men, it's microseconds or, multitudes of, really short time for much of what we do. The more that in those moments where we have to make those tough decisions that we can extend that out, that's great. And so again, we do some work on decision making.
Right.
And one of the decision things that we do is this old Japanese proverb it's called 2 seconds, 7 seconds. And basically what it's saying is that in making a decision, 2 breaths, 7 breaths, not 2 seconds, two breaths, 7 breaths. Before you make a decision, make sure you take 2 breaths and make sure that you make the decision before you finish your 7th. And so what that does, and again, that doesn't, obviously big decisions are going to take more than 7 breaths.
Right.
And if you're walking across the street and you hear a car horn, you're not going to take 2 breaths before you make a decision to jump out of the way.
Should I?
Yeah. But in those other moments, like if somebody asks you, hey, Dave, can you help me out here? Just take a couple breaths.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how much that allows your brain. Your brain is really efficient. It can be really super, super fast. And 2 breaths is more than enough time for many of us to actually step out of that immediate response and saying, oh, yeah, of course, right? That habitual response and into a more thoughtful, rational response.
That's it's interesting when you bring it up. I mean, the first thing I was thinking before you brought it up was I was thinking about the 24-hour rule, and we use that in sports very often, where you've got an issue, you're heated, your emotions are running high right now. Give yourself 24 hours to let it all just process, let yourself come back to sort of like an even playing field for your own self, then reapproach that situation. And if you still feel like you've got to say something, say it, but at least cooler heads will prevail.
Yeah. Psychological distance is actually that's the technical term, the more psychological distance you have from that hot emotional state, the more rational your brain can be. Might not, you still might have the same response, right? It's there, but more than likely it will somehow shift.
I don't know if this ties really well into the things we're talking about, but I know as I was doing some looking up on you to try to understand you better and what we were getting into today, because again, to me, this is deep convo and stuff that I thoroughly enjoy. I know I told you off air, like for me, it's been a 43-year work in progress, and
Yep.
I'm nowhere close to perfect. I'm not trying to achieve perfect. I don't believe perfection is something that is achievable. I believe that what does that mean to me?
Yeah.
And it's the constant work of trying to build that out. Now, at the same time, too, as we said off the top with 40% of people, and I've brought it up a few times, but it is a pivotal day today because, again, a lot of people have now, almost half of the people have given up. I believe the number says like somewhere around 65% of people by mid-February will have
Hmm.
given up on what they want. And one of the things that I had picked up through, again, doing some research about you, was something called behavioral biases.
Hmm.
And I thought to myself, I wonder if, and I'm going to ask the question, but throw it out there first to go, my assumption says this is what I believe I have the ability to achieve. This is what I believe I don't have the ability to achieve. I can versus I can't. Am I on the right track? And maybe what are some examples of behavioral biases?
So behavioral biases are a whole host of various different pieces. Again, where I talked about how our brain fools us, right?
Yep.
In a perfect world, so my undergraduate was economics, right? So I got
Okay.
an economics degree. In classical economics, they talk about, people are rational, and so in a rational world, here is what, most people would do. And oftentimes what we find is that given situations or given different pieces, that we don't do that, right? But we do something that is different. We don't, again, like before 401 in the United States, we have 401ks as a retirement plan, right? When they were first introduced, about 30% of the people actually contributed to those. And we know if I'm rational and I want to have a retirement fund at some point and be, living a long good life, then I need to be contributing to that and I should be maximizing that. Economists would say, yes, you should be doing that, but only 30% of the people were doing it. Well, they had what was called an opt-in version, right? This idea of I have to check the box to say I want the 401k. They switched that. And so a couple of researchers, Shlomo Benartzi and Richard Thaler has gone on to win the Nobel Prize in economics. They switched it basically. So now what they did is to opt out. If I'm working for a company, I have to opt out of the 401k to check that box. Again, you go, checking a box shouldn't make a difference between whether or not sign up for the 401k or not. Roughly 90% or more of the people are now signed up for 401ks because of that simple change. So again, the behavioral bias there is, we know we should be doing something, but we didn't. But we have a bias for the idea of it's checking the box versus not checking the box. It's
Okay.
called choice architecture. There's things about losses. A loss is viewed. We feel the pain of a loss about twice as much as we feel the pleasure of an equivalent gain. So in other words, I lose $100. That hurts twice as much as me finding $100 on the floor. So that's another behavioral bias. There's hundreds and hundreds of these. And part of the issue of behavioral science is that it's just all these different biases and different pieces. And we need to really build a more overarching kind of theoretical piece, which is being done, but that's part of the work that's going on. So behavioral biases are a number of those things. And what you talked about, there's elements of self-identity that have behavioral biases, right? So the how I view myself impacts my behaviors, and thus impacts, it's kind of a reinforcement wheel. And so if I think I'm doing something, I'm a positive person and I will do positive actions because that feels right, and then I get rewarded, and it's more and more vice versa. So
It's interesting as you brought that up with the wins and the losses. I sit there like, again, as a sports guy going, and even a business guy, There's been times where you feel the loss and you're upset, but you get the win. You're like, okay, next.
Yeah.
And it's it's not, I don't know, it doesn't last as long. So at least you've sort of like brought that down for me going, okay, I'm not the only one.
No. Well, and the other piece on that, so again, just for your listeners, we take like one negative comment. So again, salespeople all the
Yep.
time, right?
Yep.
You know, you need to have four positive kind of interactions or elements that happen to kind of outweigh that one negative piece. So again, like at the end of this, if I, we go out and I look at, hey, Kurt, great job. You did a great job on Dave's show, great job. And then one person says, I thought you were kind of flat,
Yeah.
right? What am I thinking about for the rest of the day?
The flat, right?
Yeah, I'm not thinking about the couple guys. You did great. That was awesome. You kind of flat there, Kurt. And then, in the middle of the night, I wake up going, I was flat. Oh my God, And
You see,
so
this is where I come back to the gratitude piece.
it is. It's
I'm
exactly
telling you,
that.
man, it helps outweigh all of the whatever negative might have come.
Yeah. So
Do
anyway.
you believe in the concept of work-life balance?
So it's interesting. I don't balance is always interesting because it's like one or the other, and we got to get them in balance. I think of work life integration. Like sometimes work might need to take precedence, but other times life might need to take precedence.
Yeah.
So I think there is this interconnected that if you're too much, so the balance does work on this. If you're way too much in work, that's going to cause issues on your life. And same thing, you like too focused in on family or fun or friends, and you're not going to do this. So you have to figure out ways to integrate that together. And it's tough, but I do think that if you focus in on again building out those time periods and blocking your calendar and being mindful of, hey, am I really being present here, or am I thinking about what's going on at work when I'm with my family, or vice versa? Those are really important.
I will say I do believe it's possible. I believe it takes a ton of effort. I believe that it's a daily effort. I believe it's
Hmm.
an hour by hour effort. And I believe it's a recognition around, again, when we talk about mapping, what is it that I want in life? Where is it that I want to be? Where do I want to be ultimately? And what can I do right now to be able to really impact what that outcome is going to look like?
Yeah.
Um, to that, as you wrap up your day and it's the end of your day,
Hmm.
how do you know it's been a successful day for you?
Nah, that is a fantastic question. There are a couple ways that I measure success, right? So you can look at what did you. So I journal. I journal every
Yep.
night, right? And so to your gratitude piece, I do that, but it's also a reflection back on that day. And so there's an element of that is just, how do you feel about the day?
Mhm.
There's just an emotional. If you look at you check in on your emotions, you go, yeah, that was a good day, right? But the bigger thing for me, it's not like I got through my to-do list. It's not that I, did all these things, although that's usually helpful in making
Of
that
course.
emotion piece. But it's I look back on the day and I go, did I get a memorable day? Is this a day that next week when I look back, I'll remember that. I'll remember pieces of
Hmm,
this day. Because if you
interesting.
think about your life, if you look back on, what you did last week or a month ago, there are only certain days that stand out.
Yeah.
And success for me is making more of those days. I want my life to, when I look back, I want it so filled that it's this, tome of a book that just is every day I can go, yeah, remember when we did that? That was really cool. And so usually those are kind of peak experiences during the day. So like this, I will remember this
I was
wonderful
just about to
hour
say, I hope
hour
that
that we get to spend with
yeah, I
you,
hope that this makes the list for you. I will say that as you found it an interesting question, it is a question that is constantly asked on this show. As we wrap up the show, and it's interesting to get everybody's perspectives. And yours was certainly an interesting one. And I will say that although unique and different around the memorable,
Yep.
the one thing it did not include, which nobody has included, which is just interesting when we talk about behaviors and we talk about people and accomplishments. nobody ever brings up money,
Yeah.
which is interesting, right? Because when you talk about goal setting, oftentimes we find, okay, I want to make X amount of dollars. You're like, that's what we want out of life. Well, no, but okay, so give me the life stuff. Give me the bigger picture, right? And so nobody ever brings up money.
No.
I like yours though. Memorable. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
So we do have speaking of and you mentioned, book and whatnot. Our VIP room, we've got some question, and one question that just came is as a realtor spending time in the car, do you have any recommendations you can make for books that people could read? We already talked about When by Daniel Pink.
Yeah.
You brought up Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Viktor Frankl. Yep.
What else we got? Just anything that sort of comes to mind.
You
Totally on
want
the
to you
spot here, Kurt.
you want to? I can go right here. We can look all around. I don't know if people are watching this. I am massively in books.
I love that.
There's a couple that I've talked about. So if you and then again, I won't get into this. Dan Ariely has a book called Predictably Irrational. It was written back in 2008. Fantastic book. Dan has some kind of scientific kind of issues going on right now, but the book itself is really, really good. So I still recommend the book. It talks about, again, like I talked about, those behavioral biases that we have, and
Yep.
sometimes we do things that are not what we would say rational, but man, they're predictably irrational, right? We know they're going to lead, and so it's a really good book to kind of give you in. If you want to get really scientific, two books that I love, but they're big and they're detailed and different things. One is called Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow by Dan and Kahneman, another Nobel laureate.
I think I got that one.
Yeah, it's a book that we joke. It's like, yeah, everybody that we know has it, and nobody's actually ever finished it, right? So it's one of those.
It's one of those.
It's one of those books. And the other one that I think is really, really fantastic, and it gets into, he's a biologist out of Stanford, Robert Sapolsky, and he has a book called Behave. Again, it is huge. It is just a big book, and it goes back from evolutionary perspective. He's a biologist, and he talks about our behavior from a million years ago to 100,000 years ago
Robert
to
Sapolsky, you said?
Robert Sapolsky.
Yep.
Behave. But if nothing else, just read the book for the footnotes. They're hilarious and they're funny, and he can have a whole page of a footnote on something that just he's
Gotcha.
like a good old thing. So
Cool.
but it's really, really fantastic. Gets into our neuro our brain and the biological responses and various different things. Very technical, but really a good read, and loved it. So
Listen, the more we can understand ourselves and what what's either pushing us to do or not to do, I think that's important, because I think that's what helps us all break through our own barriers. I think
yeah.
that at the end of a year, when we're looking in a mirror and we're having those conversations with ourselves around what we did or didn't accomplish, or we look at ourselves daily as we wake up and we're either happy or we're not happy, and we're all human. Being able to better understand ourselves and be able to get past what other people think, how other people do, and moreover find what we do and what works for us and what our rhythm looks like and what that routine is. I believe we all have the ability to take ourselves to that level that we want to be at, and whether we can actually clearly see what that level is, or we just know we want to continue to grow, I believe there's a lot of ability here.
Yeah.
So as we sign off here, Kurt, just any final words of wisdom from you to help everybody who's tuned into this episode. Again, we talk about whether we're 31 days in already, we have an entire year ahead of us.
Yeah.
How do we motivate people to either stay pushing, stay grinding, stay focused on what you're trying to get to, no matter how hard it is, or even motivate some of these people to get back on the horse? Just some final words of wisdom here, my friend.
Yeah, so you brought up this concept of rhythm a couple different times, and being in a rhythm and various different pieces. And I think we talk about it as a groove, right? My podcast is Behavioral Grooves, and so we talk about getting into the groove. And I think if just what we've talked about in this entirety of this process, set those big keystone goals, right? Do those action steps to achieve that, but then set that day up, and so that you get into this rhythm, you get into this groove. day in and day out. And the more that you do that, and the more that you bring in, some of these practices around gratitude and setting up your day for success and reflecting back on that day and all of those different pieces of that, the better that groove gets and the more productive you are. But not only are you more productive, you become more satisfied with your life. You actually feel better about it in those kinds of things. So I just really encourage people to try to find that rhythm, build that rhythm and really focus in on finding that groove for yourself and making that happen.
Very well said. Some fantastic insights today, sir. I've truly really appreciated the time, the insights. I've learned a whole bunch of stuff. I've reinforced a bunch of things around what I do personally, what we're teaching people, and we've got some good support from you as well to what is working and obviously some insights into what we can do to adjust as well. So again, some awesome words of wisdom today. The topic was very much all about how to motivate yourself to accomplish anything. And you certainly helped us do that today. So, Kurt Nelson, I thank you once again for joining us today on the MindShare podcast.
Thank you. And thanks everybody.
You are either listening to this on one of your favorite podcast platforms. Maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. And while you're there, be sure to download your free copy of our MindShare 101 goal setting worksheet to help you conquer 2024 and become the version of you that you really want to be. A reminder as well that if you want to talk about personalized one-to-one coaching and in-person keynote talk for your upcoming event and or ongoing virtual training, just get in touch with myself, my team. We'll set up a consultation call. We'll learn more about what you're looking to achieve and how we will help you do just that. Again, for all inquiries, just get in touch with us today. Of course, don't forget to leave a review of this podcast at www.ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Again, ratethispodcast.com/mindshare101. Take you to iTunes, take you to Spotify. Big 5 stars, nice little review. We'd be super pumped if you would take a moment to do that. Of course, connect with me on Facebook at MindShare101, on TikTok at MindShare101, and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. Just before we take off, I want to say a big thank you to Kits Keep in Touch Systems, REM Real Estate Magazine, and OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, for sponsoring the MindShare podcast. Of course, be sure to visit realityconference.ca to get your tickets for Reality 24 taking place in Ottawa, Ontario. It is going to be an amazing, amazing event, and I'm excited to be your MC for that event. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. This has been another episode of the MindShare podcast. Thank you for tuning in.